Originally I'm from New York, moved to Melbourne. I see some Melburnians, woohoo, Melbourne. And been living in Israel, in the Katzmon area for the last 15 years. And over the course of the time that I've been working, I started out really doing couples therapy. And I used to see couples who were struggling with their relationship, and what they noticed was that a lot of their issues stemmed from the very early stage of their relationship, sometimes even from dating. I remember couples I've worked with where the wife even said to me, I felt like I was making the biggest mistake of my life sitting on the kisei kala, on the kala chair. And this was 20 years later. She had that memory in mind. And I thought to myself, if only people could have really worked through who they are, what they really need from a relationship before they get into one, their lives would be so much better. And yes, that doesn't mean that, all is lost. Like sometimes we do marry somebody who maybe isn't the perfect match for us necessarily, and sometimes we need to work things through. And sometimes, we need to start over. And it's all good, because thank God there's many, many options out there. And so that's something that I've been very, very blessed to see, and very much be blessed to be a part of. So I'd like to start out sharing a little story with you about a client I worked with more than 15 years ago, back when I lived in Melbourne, because I wanted to choose someone that you most likely would not know. And I changed her name, and she's actually a composite of a lot of different clients. So, because we're talking about red flags and green flags and things like that. So, yeah, so here goes. I apologize, I'm gonna have to read from my notes a little bit because I just have too damn much to say. I can't remember it all. Okay, so Kylie, I called her Kylie because Mina's dumb, continuously dated the kind of people she wished she hadn't. She told me she never ended a relationship with someone just because the attraction was no longer there or because they didn't have enough in common, but rather her relationships ended because they reached a point where she could no longer handle feeling mistreated. Kylie felt that most men she dated began well, but over time they began to disregard her and make her feel like an old dish rag. Now, maybe one of you can relate to this. Maybe you've come out of a relationship recently where you feel like you're banging your head against a wall because yet again you've dated someone where it started out so well, you felt like you really had this connection, you felt really seen by them, you felt really acknowledged by them, you felt like they were really into you, and then slowly but surely you felt, here's another bad apple. So you go into this mindset of telling yourself, there must be no good people out there to date. And I'm saying people because this really goes both ways, right? Because everyone I go out with ends badly. So your dating pattern might look something like this. You meet someone, they make you feel really good in the beginning, they treat you nicely, they take you nice places, you have a great time. Then slowly they lose interest. And maybe they distance themselves from you, or start saying things that are hurtful, or they seem to care less about your opinion. The changes are so subtle, you hardly even notice. Initially, you make excuses for them because things were so fantastic at the start. He's so attractive, he's so into me, or she's so into me, and she's so excited about everything I say, and they're making so much time for me, and all these things are kind of happening. And you tell yourself, you must be expecting too much, or you're too needy, if you have to start, which is what makes you start making excuses. You carry on remembering the early part of the relationship because things just felt so good. Where did that person go? We hold on to those memories, and you don't allow yourself to see the person that you met initially and this new manifestation, and it's hard to see how they could be so wildly different. You are hooked. And what makes us hold on to those early memories? Is it desperation? Is it loneliness? Is it lack of other options? Or maybe it's hope. In a lot of circumstances, it's the latter. Right? People rightly believe in the innate goodness of others, and that's what we're all taught to believe, right? Like a lot of people who face this circumstance, you're hopeful that the nice person you met early on in the relationship will return. You loved how you felt then. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to hold on to that? After all, you don't connect with everyone, but you felt a real connection here. And that person who stroked your ego and said such nice things to you, who made you feel so good, lives in that person's body. So where did they go, and what changed? Most of us start putting out our best selves in the beginning. We all do that, right? We want to feel loved, and we want to do almost anything to feel that loving feeling, right? Most of us were taught by our parents, you want to make friends, you got to be nice to them, right? Most people aren't taught. You want to attract friends, you want to attract someone you love, treat them like crap. Anybody get that message? I didn't. I don't think any of you did really either. But nearly everyone knows that they need to put on their good game face initially, and we're full of hope and expectations. And let's face it, we all up our game in the beginning of a relationship because we were all taught that if you want someone to like you, you got to be nice, like I just said. So over time, we drop our guard, and we no longer feel that we have to put on our best front, right? And the person we're dating, they do the same. Now, we all make mistakes, right? Some of us come late for dates here and there. Some of us forget things. Sometimes we don't speak as nicely. We get a little irritated. We get a little narky, right? Certain mistakes are forgivable if they happen infrequently and if there's a genuine display of regret. Where we might consider looking at a person as one whom we can't trust is if over time, and this does take time to uncover. This is not going to be something you're going to see within a few weeks or a month, which is why I'm really against quick dating. Okay, that's a whole nother speech, but you heard it here first. Your date begins to disregard you, makes you feel that your opinion matters less, or that your feelings don't matter, and they even lack empathy towards you, right? You start to share things with them that maybe you did at the beginning. Maybe you told them you had a little cold, or whatever, and they're like, oh, well, you don't feel good? Oh, I'll find something else to do. Or, oh, you have a tight deadline and you've got a lot of work to do. Oh, sucks to be you. I'll go find somebody else to spend my time with, right? Total lack of empathy, total delegitimizing, total not really caring, right? These are actual red flags to look out for. On the other hand, it's important to put things in perspective. Coming a bit late to a date, wearing mismatched socks, forgetting to say please and thank you all the time. And I know there's different cultural norms around that stuff. I know I'm originally from New York, married to a Brit. He had to educate me a little bit about the pleases and thank yous. I know that's not true for all New Yorkers, but it was true for me, okay? But these are forgivable acts, especially if you are trying to up yourself and make yourself a better person, right? But doing things that actually make you feel unsafe, uncared for, and unimportant is unacceptable behavior, right? These are the red flags we're talking about here. We all trip up occasionally and make mistakes, and the difference between red flags that we need to pay attention to and those we don't is the intention of the person waving them. The way to determine the difference between a red flag and an honest mistake is by the level of responsibility taken. If no responsibility is taken on their part, and by this I mean if they try to pass the buck and blame you for their mistake, or make excuses to avoid having to apologize, or convince you it's all in your head, you're making this up. Or worse, they legitimize their behavior and they say, that's totally fine. It's fine that I took 2 hours to get here. There was lots of traffic, They had that hafganah, out at the Knesset, and of course it took me 2 hours. But meanwhile, we all know there's a hafganah tomorrow, guys. If you have a date tomorrow, give yourself an extra 2 hours, right? In those situations, don't walk, run. This is not someone you want to be with. If, however, they genuinely show remorse, and over time, they can take responsibility, they can validate your feelings, and make you feel good about yourself, you can safely assume this person is good dating material, and you carry on. To answer the question above, what makes us miss these red flags? The answer lies in how we genuinely feel about ourselves. People who feel worthy of respect, validation, and good feelings will invite those people in, and they won't give the time of day to people who'll make them feel bad or uncomfortable or unsafe. Now, as I did say, it does take time for this to show up. However, the time to nip this in the bud is at the very beginning. You see that bad behavior, you say it straight out. This is not okay. This is not going down. And you give them a few chances to see whether they could, front up and, behave well. But if this is a pattern where over time they're not really taking responsibility, we need to look at things a little bit differently. Now, if you find yourself similar to Kylie, constantly inviting people into your life who treat you poorly, we need to find out what that's about. To just chalk that up to bad luck would be a pity, because then you can't do anything about it. and you're helpless and you feel out of control. The question here is, how can you put yourself back in control and make sure you attract someone who is willing to treat you well and able? Part of this is our belief system about how we should be treated and how we actually treat ourselves. If we've been made to feel that you get what you get and you don't get upset, right? How many of your parents said you get what you get and don't get upset? You get the red one, you get the green one, too bad. You don't, that works well when it's like a little toy or it's a little whatever. But the thing is, we take that message with us in a lot of different ways. And we just think, oh, our friends treated us like crap. Okay, we should just carry on. We're lucky to have a friend. We're lucky to have someone who kind of shows up every once in a while, right? A lot of us have been in relationships, even just friendships, where we were just treated like garbage. And we kind of carry on with that. Or our parents didn't really see us. They didn't really make time for us, right? And so, our parents said, oh, I've got 15 minutes for you. Now's the time. You gotta just do or die, right? And it's like, well, actually, I don't want to really spend time with you right now, right? Where we didn't really feel that we had the opportunity or the ability to stand up and say what we needed, right? Sometimes those abilities were really taken away from us, right? So for those people who experience that, you feel lucky to get anything, right? If that person's like willing to spend any time with me, wow, I'm so lucky. This person's actually willing to like make a little time for me. Isn't that fantastic? If, on the other hand, you hold yourself with high regard and believe that you're worthy of being treated well, the way that you treat yourself is modeling and educating those that date you about how they must treat you. You don't tolerate crappy behavior, and you express this clearly. You set good boundaries. You model for the person you're dating how you are to be treated, and then they either rise to the occasion or bow out because they are simply incapable, right? Some people are incapable of empathy, right? And so you need to really state to them very clearly, like, this is how I want to be treated. Like, when I'm feeling crappy, I expect to hear, oh, I'm so sorry, what can I do, right? We all know what empathy is, but how many of us actually demand it of the other person? I don't mean in a demanding way, like, but just like, I'm sorry, this is how I wish to be treated. If you can't do it, this just isn't going to fly, right? And can we expect someone to check all the boxes of what we're looking for in a potential partner? Maybe not. However, there is one expectation that I beg you to not look over when you're choosing a partner, and that is the ability to feel safe. And this is something that's based on Sue Johnson's work, right? I don't know how many of you are familiar with Sue Johnson. She's the co-creator of the Emotionally Focused Couples Therapy Program and Hold Me Tight. The book, Hold Me Tight, is a famous book. It's been around for more than 20 years. And basically, she says the number one thing that we need from a partner, that we need to feel from a partner, is to feel safe, to feel that we could really be our best selves, to feel that we could say what we feel and the other person doesn't hyper-criticize us or put us down or things like that. Now, I know some of you are nodding your heads and it's like it seems obvious, or mouvement mais love, as they say here, but some of us don't actually hold to that, right? Some of us just feel like we just push that aside. So if you feel you're unaware of what makes you attract people who are wrong for you, or you feel bewildered about how you seem to be getting into the similar dating patterns over and over again, I invite you to do some inner work with the help of a professional who can help you identify what's getting in your way. But right now, like, let's say, I'm sure a lot of you are doing a lot of inner work and all that, but I just want to give you some top tips here on what it is that we can do to help not get us into bad situations. And if you could, here, I'm just going to pass out. I made a little list, a little checklist of red flags and green flags, and I urge you to look at this list and to see how many of you have let the red flags go, and how many of you are focusing on the green flags. And I really think that it's also really important to not just look at the red flags, but to really also focus on the green flags. Like, what are the things? Could I actually have one? Sorry. To really focus on the green flags, right? There's a whole list of green flags. Capable of vulnerability, willing to take ownership for mistakes, willing, and apologize, the ability to apologize, speaking directly. Lots of times people love to walk around in circles in order to downplay what they're really feeling and thinking. They don't act empathetically, they don't consider or respect you, or on the green side, they do consider and respect you. They consider your feelings consistently, show a balance between sensitivity of your needs and theirs, which is often a challenge because sometimes we have different needs. But So apart from going to therapy, what can you do to take your control back? This is really important, okay? So know that there are people in the world who do know how to have mutually satisfying relationships, and they're not only out there for their own self-interest. And I think having that belief system in place is super important, right? Because if we just think there's nobody out there, if we kind of tell us that mantra, there's nobody out there, then it'll be really hard to really see the people who are out there. Know that there are people in this world who are incapable of loving others, no matter what you do, no matter how giving and fabulous you are, they will not be able to give to you. And because they just don't have love to give. It's not because you're a bad person or they don't actually love you. It's just that they don't know how. And you can't do anything. Like there's nothing that you can do. And a lot of people think they have to do cartwheels and flips and turn themselves into pretzels in order to make those kinds of people love them. They just can't, right? And so that's something that you're going to need to see that over time and test that out over time. Know that you can twist yourself into whatever shape pretzel that they say and they want. They will never be satisfied and will only ask for more till you get sick and drained and you try to leave. At which point they will try and behave and win you back, and there's like a never-ending cycle, right? I don't know how many of you guys have been in that sort of situation where there's a cycle where you kind of think that if I only do this, or if I only do that, or if I do what they said, and then they try to hoover. That's an expression that is used a lot with these things, right? You really need to really have very strong boundaries and be very clear about what is that you're doing and what you're willing to do, and know what they're capable of, and really be able to see the distinction between those two. Be clear with yourself about what you're doing, and that you're doing everything to give to the relationship, and that you need to be able to receive as well, right? If you're just giving and giving and giving and you're not receiving back, you need to cut it and really say, no, this is not okay. No matter how attracted you are, don't jump into a relationship head first. This is something that a lot of people do. They think, oh, I met the most amazing person and they're so exciting, they treat me so well, and I'm feeling so good. And they just give it all in, and they just give because they just are so excited, right? It's a natural thing to do. But what we need to do is we need to really give very slowly, right? Walk into a relationship slowly but surely. Give a little, see that you're getting back. Give a little, see that you're getting back. It's kind of like a little tango, where you really see that the other person is responsive to the things that you're giving, and to see that they can receive, right? Not everybody can receive either. And some people will put your ideas down or put your thoughts down, okay? And if you find that time and again you're attracting people who don't know how to do a two-sided relationship, you need to go and work this out with someone, because this is what I'm really talking about here, and I'm going to say the N-word. It's about narcissism, right? That's what the red flags really are all about. And so, and it's about people having unhealthy attachments. And so the best thing that we could do is work on developing a really good, strong, secure attachment to ourselves, and not really rely on other people to fill us up and to make us feel good. We need to be able to do that for ourselves. And a lot of therapists will say, they try to work on people to, try to change the other person, or try to change you so that you're good for the other person because you're in the room and the other person isn't. And that's just not fair. You really need someone who's really able to identify, this is someone who's really not okay. This is somebody who's not really fronting up and really giving, and who isn't going to be able to give to you and be there for you in the way that you need. Right? And lots of people will call you picky. Oh, you're so picky. You're not willing to go the extra mile, whatever. This is where you got to be picky. If there's a place to be picky, it's about being treated in the best way possible. I'm not saying you have to be a princess or anything like that, but just feeling that you're respected and feeling that you're safe in the relationship. That's rule number one. And if you look after yourself, as I said, this is something to be picky about, because if you don't know how to look after yourself, no one else will either. And on that note, I'm happy to open up the floor to questions. You guys are all very quiet. Yeah?
Where does the line between being codependent and narcissism separate?
Yeah, codependents are great fodder for narcissists. Basically, the narcissist will go for people who are very empathetic, and a lot of people who are empathetic love the fact that the narcissist is showing them a lot of attention in the beginning, And then there's like this cold wall that kind of goes up. So they often do go hand in hand. So like I said, the way to break that codependent narcissistic thing is to not feel the need to be needed, but to feel that you're a standalone person, they're a standalone person, you're two standalone people together. And that's really the best way to go there. Somebody else?
About responsibility for feelings.
Pardon?
Responsibility for feelings.
What about? On the red side?
Yeah.
Does the person that you're with take responsibility for their feelings and for your feelings, or do they dump their feelings on you? You're telling me that you make it sound like I'm a monster, right? They might say something like that, or wow, you really sound like you don't think very highly of me, rather than saying, I'm hearing that you're feeling unsafe in this relationship, or I'm hearing you're feeling that I'm not listening to you enough. Is that right? Is there more than I can do in order to help with that?
They're blaming you for your feelings.
They're blaming you for feeling how you feel about them, or in general. Yeah, good question. Any other questions? Yeah.
What is your recommended time frame for
How long to?
seeing how?
It's a toughie. One thing I would say is to not, look, it's really, there's no real black and whites here. I know a lot of people, especially in Israel, right? Like a lot of people come from overseas and they want to date you like really hard, really fast because they're here for like 2 weeks. And you've got 2 weeks to like figure it out, right? So the long distance relationship-y thing can make it a little bit challenging, and I've heard that many, many times, and sometimes that's a great opportunity for a narcissist or someone who doesn't care about you to kind of get onto the radar, right? So you really want to try to see, it's not really just the time frame, it's seeing people in a lot of different settings, seeing that they're open to exposing you to a lot of their people and their world as opposed to just coming into your world. Like you want to feel a balance with everything. That's really, and I don't think you could really necessarily put a time frame on that. Yes?
It was said as you introduced that we believe that everyone deserves a loving relationship, but does Narcissist deserve one?
Ooh. Yeah, whew, you stumped me.
You said, I'll just repeat the question,
Yeah.
if that's okay?
Sure.
You said at the beginning that we believe that every person is deserving of a loving, or a long-lasting loving relationship, something like that. And then the question was asked, what about narcissists? Is that the narcissist?
Yeah.
Just adding on to that.
Pardon?
Just adding on to that. Could
Sure.
it be that a narcissist could be like self-aware enough that they can then change?
For sure.
Look, I mean, I have worked with a few narcissists who really did, like they just got to this point where they just were constantly in relationship after, like over and over and over again, and they saw what was happening and they really did want to, be in love. I think there's also, you have to make a distinction between the overt, the covert, the malignant, the psychopathic. The malignant and the psychopathic narcissist, like, they're write-offs, okay? There's nothing we can do about them because their only goal is to make you feel like crap. The overt and the covert, there is some room there, I mean, I was recently working with a couple where the man was an overt narcissist, and he really loved doing a particular job. I'm not going to say what, but like he was like a lot of narcissists are like CEO types and those kinds of things. And the wife was like, I can't have you be that way because it's actually taking away from our relationship, and I don't feel like you could really be here for me. And he's like, all right, fine, I'm going to ditch that. But then he was like, but that was actually how he was getting his narcissistic supply, so that he relied on her a little bit less and didn't put so much pressure on her. So it's about, how aware the person is about what their actions are doing to the relationship and to their partner. There's no catch-all. I think what I do believe is that the more that the non-narcissists, let's talk about that, right? The more that we create healthy, secure relationships, the more we're going to ice out those people, right? Those people are not going to be in relationships because we're not going to give them what they need. And the more that they aren't given what they need, the more that forces them to say, I actually want love. I actually, want to be in a relationship. I actually want to create a family. Maybe I need to do something. That's my hopefulness. That doesn't mean it's your job to make that happen, because it probably won't. But I think that the more that we really reflect on ourselves and really own our stuff and be our best selves, the more we won't accept crap from a narcissist. I hope that answers your question. Anybody else? Yeah.
What percentage of the population would you say are narcissists or the way you described it,
Yeah.
it sounds like, I don't know, we're the good people, everyone else is, like, how does that work?
Yeah. Look, I don't really know the stats on that. I just know that there's quite a few out there. You know, I've been doing this for 20 years. Let's say I see a lot of clients a week. Let's say a quarter of the people that I work with have this issue, so that's quite high.
And are you able to
Yeah.
not just protect, so to speak, from the narcissist, but to aid the narcissist?
Am I able to who what?
When you have these couples where the narcissist codependent dynamic that you're
Yeah.
talking about, so are you there to just stop people from having these toxic relationships, or are you able to repair one side, the other side? Is that?
Look, if a narcissist isn't willing to take responsibility, which they often aren't, the way that I work with the couple is I help the non-narcissist to really see what's going on and invite them to do some work on themselves. Oftentimes I'm working with an individual when it comes to these sorts of things. It's very, very rare that I will work with a couple, although, no, it does happen. And oftentimes the narcissist will know that I'm onto them pretty quickly and they'll stop coming, right? So that'll happen. But if I'm working with an individual who is really in a lot of pain, from being with this narcissistic person and they're like over being the narcissistic supplier and they want to be their best selves, with those people, thank God, because I'm able to really lay down the lines and be very, very clear and strict about how things are going and show it to them, I've had a lot of success there. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question. Anybody else?
Let's say you identify a red flag in your partner. How long do you give them, or how many chances do you give them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dave, how many chances do you give them? I mean, yeah, it's really a hard thing to measure. But I think if they're saying, I'm not capable of this, which sometimes they are, they say, I can't give you what you need. Sometimes they'll say that. Sometimes they will say, I am not capable of empathy. I'm just not an empathetic person. I've heard people say that. They say, I'm not an empathetic person, take me or leave me. And so that's when you run. That's when you don't try to change them. Or you don't say, empathy, who needs that? What's empathy for, right? That's for suckers. I don't need empathy, I'm so tough. No. But the thing with narcissists is they'll chop and change, right? They'll sometimes say one thing and then they'll flip and chop and change. It's like, it's how long is a piece of string. But I think you really have to really ask yourself, like, do I really feel respected here? And am I feeling like a schmata? Because if you're feeling like a schmata, like, it's just a no-go zone. Like, you cannot, like, that's a really low bar, by the way, feeling like a schmata. You should feel like way higher than that. You should feel like you're respected, you're loved, you're cherished, they care about you, all these things, right? These are the things we're going for. So, I know that doesn't fully answer your question, but we'll talk about it later.
In going with that answer, there are a lot of people that are under stress, life circumstances can happen. So, like, on the one hand, they are human and they do make mistakes, right? So there is a level of being empathetic to whatever they're going through to be like, okay, like, once, twice, said though, but like, where do you draw the line is really the question, because I also can be like, crazy hormonal stress, whatever it is, everybody can, right? So when is it appropriate and acceptable, and when is it just like absolutely 100% red line goodbye?
Right. So as I said, it's really about, are they willing to take responsibility and act on it? Maybe I missed that. They really need to act on the response, like not just say, oh, I'm sorry, lip service. Actual behavior change where they are really, and by the way, my husband was the worst with coming late. He and we dated before mobile phones, so he would come like ridiculously late. In this day and age, if he tried any of that crap, we wouldn't have 4 kids. We wouldn't even be together anymore. But he really did improve, because I said to him, I laid down the line. I said, Pierre, get off the pot. I'm not accepting this crap. If you want to be married to me, this is what you have to do. And he did. And then there's peaks and valleys of that, but lo and behold, he's a lot better.
So I guess the question is, how patient are you in the peaks and valleys of the growth, of the change?
Right. So it's also how much do you expect from them, how much do you expect from you, and also how many areas does it permeate? If it's just one area, like time, being late. Like some people just suck at it. They just, I don't know what happened to them. Like watches are lost on them for some reason, right? But then there's other things that make you feel respected, right? There's just, listening to your opinion, valuing you, making you feel good in other ways, telling them, this is my love language, this is how I want you to show up. Are they able to listen to that? Are they respecting those sorts of things? So if it's in several different areas where you're not being respected, then you need to really ask yourself, especially the areas that are important to you. Some areas you might not care. Some people couldn't give a toss if their partner didn't give them a gift, however once, they do it, they buy things for themselves or whatever. But the areas that are really, really important to you, that you express, this is how I want to be loved. These are things that you need to show and say and do in order to make me feel loved. If they can't do those things, and those are the things that are really, really important because you just feel not good and not safe, that's something to really think about. I think that's the distinction I would make, really. Yeah, thanks for the question. Anybody else? Did we cover everything? Oh yeah, another one.
Does the narcissist know that he's a narcissist?
Good question.
Who does she know?
He or she. Thank you for that correction, because that does happen. Sometimes they do. Oftentimes they'll get into very superficial, shallow relationships because they know that they're not capable of like really deeply connecting. Would they give themselves the Nword as a diagnosis? I don't know that they would necessarily. It depends on how much pain they're in, and they are, by the way, in a lot of pain. Not that you should feel too much empathy for them, because that could put you in a bad space. But it often really comes from their poor attachment styles, right? Oftentimes, a narcissist will develop because their parents really didn't see them, and they felt that the only person that could really be there for me is me. And so they don't allow themselves to really let anybody in. And then it just becomes this insidious thing of, I'm not going to rely on you, because if I rely on you, I'm just going to be disappointed, so I better just rely on myself. And then they sort of like try to rely on you. But they do it in a way that is going to set themselves up for failure. So they sabotage, right? So they might not know that they are narcissists, but they know that there's something inside of them that's not getting what they want, and they will try to do everything that they can in order to get those needs met. I think that's pretty much, yeah. Anybody else? All right, okay, thank you very much, everybody. And if you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I pop my website here, lovingwisely.co.il. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. So looking forward to hearing from you and helping you create great relationships.
Thank you.
Be well, guys.
Shama shir shir